Happy New Year! It's a time for New Year's resolutions, and we're going to be looking at whether or not they actually work. And it's a surprisingly balanced picture. We're going to be looking at the case for and against New Year's resolutions, and then we're going to be trying to bring it all together and to see what we can do to make the best of them if we decide to go ahead with them. Let's start by looking at why they might not work. Well, the evidence is there even in gyms. When you go and talk to anybody who works in a gym, they'll tell you that in January, the gyms are packed, especially in the first half of January. By Easter, they're pretty much empty again. And the reason is because people have made New Year's resolutions to go to a gym and they haven't kept to it. So why do these things happen, and why do people not keep to the resolutions that they make? Well, the first point is that January the 1st is just a random day on the calendar. It just happens to be what we've decided is going to be called the first day of the next year. And so it's not actually any more powerful than any other day. It's just another day. And you could just as effectively make resolutions on other days. And there's an argument that that might be actually more effective, because at other times of the year, you're going to be more ready to make the sorts of changes that you need to make. Our readiness doesn't coincide with a calendar. There might be other times in the year when we're more optimally aligned to make the sort of changes that we want to. And the problem with New Year's resolutions is they're coming from an obligation of having to do it on a particular date when we might not be ready for it, rather than at the natural time that our body says, yeah, I'm ready for this, or our whole system wants a big change. We also seem to like to focus on depriving ourselves or using force. So either to force ourselves to do exercise that we don't want to do or go to a gym, or to deprive ourselves of something that we love to eat, like sugar or fat or alcohol or whatever it is. And that might not be the best way to, at least to frame making a New Year's resolution and a way forward in life, because it makes it hard to sustain the initial impetus going through the year. We might be full of enthusiasm on the 1st of January because it's something new and exciting, but humans are notoriously weak, and our willpower is not very strong, and we start to have different feelings and get into a different type of lifestyle, or things come and get in the way, or we get our first illness of the year and things drift away, and then you've got to make that huge effort again to get back on track, because you weren't fully aligned with the change in the first place and it seemed to be taking something away from you. We're totally dependent on our feeling of enthusiasm for sustaining that change, and it makes it really difficult. So after all of that, what is there to say in favour of New Year's resolutions? Well, I'd said before that the timing was arbitrary and random, and it's difficult to align it with when your system actually wants to change. But there is another factor to think about, and that's that over the Christmas period, many people have just been in a state of extreme indulgence and wastefulness, wasting time, overeating food, getting totally out of a routine. And that sort of thing can often propel us into a mood for change. So the conditions are actually quite good at the end of the year as we head towards a new year, a new routine. It makes sense to sort of draw on the disillusion that the Christmas period has brought us to help us to sort of create a new life, which is closer in line with what we really want. And there's another thing as well. What I've noticed, especially over the past few years, is that there seems to be some sort of shift in energy after the new year. And I think it might be to do actually with the changing of the moon cycle. So the days are starting to get longer. It may have something to do with that. But what I felt over the last few years is that as New Year approaches, there's a sort of opening up and a lightness and a sort of natural energy that promotes change. And so it's not only because of that the indulgence of Christmas, but there's also something in the air that makes it not just a random time for change, but actually a really optimal time for change. Of course, that's not true if you live somewhere like Australia, when you probably the middle of the summer is the time to make the changes. But for the Northern Hemisphere, yeah, it's a good time. So how do we bring all of that together and make a success of the resolutions that we want to make? So if we can align our inner readiness to make change with the seasonal benefits, all the better. But if we can't, we could do this at any time of year. The first thing to do is to be really specific about what we want and make a plan to help us achieve it. So often we'll have resolutions like, I want to have less screen time, or I want to eat less sugar, or something like this, which are very broad. And because there's nothing to help us get there, it's really easy to slip back into old habits because we don't have a clear picture of the new habits. So when we plan, we're giving ourselves a clear picture. So if, for example, I decide I want to eat less sugar, how much sugar less do I want to eat? Can I put a target figure for the day? Are there any particular foods that are going to be off limits at any time? Or are there any times of day when I'm not going to be able to eat anything with sugar in, for example? Some people just have vegetable juice and salad in the morning, for example. Those sorts of things can help. If I decide I want to have less screen time, how much less? Is there a sort of rule or routine I could put in place that would help me? So one thing that I've been doing, for example, for some time is not putting the internet on until a certain time in the morning, and then making sure it's off again a certain length of time before going to bed. That way, it's good for the body anyway. It gets a longer time to reset from the constant stimulation. But it also, ensures that I've got no draw to the phone in those hours just before sleeping and just after waking, where it can be really disruptive to our routines. If I decide I want to go to bed earlier, how much earlier? And what do I need to do to make sure I can go to bed at that time? For example, 2 hours before bed, do I need to be finishing my dinner or switching the computer off or having my bath or whatever it is, because I know there's a certain amount of time after that that I need in order to wind down before being able to be ready to sleep. So those sorts of steps, those sorts of plans can really help us to optimize the results of our resolutions. Another thing we can do is to commit for a short time at the beginning, because often these resolutions are huge and they're really big commitments, and they can be quite intimidating to commit to for the long term. And it can also cause us to doubt our ability to stick with them. So one thing we could do is to commit for, say, a month at the beginning, and then just decide at the end of that month I'll review and see whether or not I want to keep these changes. And if they're positive changes, why wouldn't I want to keep them? But it takes that pressure off us at the beginning. It's why things like Sober October and Veganuary are really successful, and a sort of really sizable amount of people actually do end up giving up alcohol permanently or becoming vegan permanently because of these initiatives. And there's another thing which I would obviously recommend, which is energy healing. I found that energy healing can be really helpful to align us with the goals that we want and to remove any obstacles, any energetic blocks, any emotional blocks that we've got stuck in our system that are stopping us from either being in tune with the goal that we want or sticking with the plan that will enable us to achieve it. And relatively recently, there's a new modality recently come out called the Belief Code, and that's especially helpful in this sort of regard. So I hope that's been useful. I wish you success with your New Year's resolutions or resolutions that you do at any time of year, and I'll see you again soon.
So I came to Heartful Healing because I felt that there were some blockages that were causing me to not feel balanced. I had had a coil for many years, and when I had this taken out, my cycle wasn't happening. Nothing was happening. It was almost as if there was a blockage in my body. One of the most profound sessions to me was where I actually spoke to him, said I would like to invite more joy and creativity and abundance into my life. And we had a very good session demonstrating that there was a bit of a blockage in my uterus, my womb. This was blocked several different emotions were behind it. There were some other things that were sort of connected to the bladder, and together with Guy helped manage to clear all of that. So that the next day my cycle started, and it was almost as if it was like a cleanse, and my whole body just aligned. And I felt really amazing after that, much more in sync, much more connected, more connected with the heart. Guy has been absolutely incredible, and I'm 50, so I was also having irregular cycles, and what I can say now is that they are regular, so thank you very much.
Book a session with Heartful Healing.